Okay.
So it is 6:58, June 8th, 2023. So we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I can. Okay, well, I'll do roll call. So Jost? Here. Hussein?
Here.
Puzo? Here. Gonzalez?
Here.
Macy Jack here. Absent is Pelletier and Flores. Okay. I did call Lima, yes. All right, so public comments, agenda items only. It is just us here tonight. So as everyone sees from the agenda, we are going to discuss the presentation of the 2022 audit now, so Nick doesn't have to sit through our entire meeting. So, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And everyone should have these. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you for having me here tonight. As Pam mentioned, my name is Nick Bava. I'm a partner with Sikich. I've overseen many elements of the library's audit. Brian Lefebvre, who you were familiar with presenting, is the signing partner in the engagement. He can't be here tonight, so I'm here to fill in for him. At any point during this presentation, feel free to stop me if there's any questions. I know there's a lot of information in these audit reports, so I'll try to go through them slowly, hit the high points, and happy to answer any questions that you might have. So ultimately, as part of the audit process, we issue two reports: the annual financial report, which is the audit report, and then the auditor's communication to the Board of Trustees. Starting with the annual financial report, if you're going to follow along, the page numbers that I'll refer to are obviously on the bottom. I've got a PDF in front of me, so I'll try to be conscious of that. So we'll start with the independent auditor's report, which is pages 1, 2, and 3. So the independent auditor's report are the three most important pages in the document, in that they highlight your independent auditor's opinion on the financial statement. So what's nice about the new format of the opinion is that it hits the opinion right at the top, which is the most important section. So that second paragraph of the top section just dictates that the financial statements based on our audit present fairly in all material respects of the library's governmental activities, major fund, and aggregate remaining fund information. Again, this is as of December 31st, 2022, most recent fiscal year. So that's what is referred to as an unmodified opinion. It's a clean opinion, and it's the highest level of assurance that we as auditors can provide. So good news always on that end. The next section there I want to highlight is the change in accounting principle. Every year, as part of any audit, we and the library have to evaluate what accounting principles GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, puts out and what applies and what needs to be implemented. So this year, you may or may not be familiar with, but lease accounting has been modified for-profit and governmental entities. It is intending on capturing lease accounting, which is historically, for the most part, off-balance sheet accounting, and putting those obligations on your balance sheet. So when you think about the library's lease obligations, these are leases of tangible assets. You consider copier leases and a parking lot lease. So what's great about the library is that they're organized and prepared for this standard, and we'll highlight the impact in the financial statements, but it's just worth noting that that was a pretty new, complex standard that the library is required to implement this year. So it's a new accounting policy on leases. Page 2, I think it's just important to cover the difference between the responsibilities as it relates to management versus the auditor. Responsibilities of management of the library are to prepare the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Our role, the next paragraph, the next section, as the auditors, is to develop an opinion on those financial statements, and those are really dictated by a few sets of standards. No, it's okay. I can pause. Please.
No worries, thanks.
Mark Flores, one of our other trustees. Mark, we're on the
Page 2.
annual financial report on page 2.
So when it comes to the auditor's responsibilities, it's our role to develop an opinion based on the financials that are prepared by management. We're governed by a couple sets of standards, the AICPA, American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, which dictate how we test and the procedures behind those. And then also by GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which really is what makes the content and format of your report here tonight. So good news on the independent auditor's report, just important to kind of cover the highlights on that section. Page number 4 is the beginning of the financial statements. This is the library's statement of net position. So this is the long-term perspective balance sheet for the library. It's recorded on the full accrual basis of accounting, and it is like any other consolidated balance sheet for any type of entity. It includes all of the library's long-term activity from an asset standpoint, your capital assets, as well as your long-term liabilities, your pension liabilities, your note payable with Fifth Third. It gives the user an economic long-term outlook from a net position standpoint. So I think it's just important to remember the difference between long-term and short-term when we look at these balance sheets here. So that's your statement of net position. Page number 5 is your long-term income statement, your statement of activities. Again, on the same measurement of accounting, full accrual. When you look at the change in net position on the bottom, positive change in net position of over $1,085,000, that just indicates that economically that the library is better off this year than the last. So as we make our way into the next statements, we'll look more at your fund level balance sheet and income statement. But again, these two statements are required by GASB to show a consolidated long-term approach from a financial perspective. So page 6 is your governmental funds balance sheet. It includes the two funds that the library has, your general fund and your special reserve fund. The general fund, the key number to look at is the unassigned fund balance figure on the bottom right. So unassigned fund balance represents a fund balance that's available to spend at the discretion of the board of management. It's unrestricted dollars. You always compare this figure from a reserve standpoint to expenditures in the current year. When you look at this $2.1 million compared to audited expenditures as of this fiscal year, that represents roughly about 63% of expenditures during the fiscal year. So usually, kind of a standard benchmark we see is about 3 to 6 months of operating expenditures for a reserve. So being at 63% represents a healthy reserve on that. Page 8 is the governmental funds income statement. So same two funds, just showing revenues over expenditures. Positive years in both funds. We'll look at the general fund budget versus actual schedule shortly, but you'll note that there was positive changes in fund balance of $336,000 in the general fund, and then a positive change of about $400 just due to interest income in the special reserve fund. So that's your change in fund balance for the two funds this year, positive years. On page number 10, this is the beginning of the note to the financial statements. There are many pages in the notes. I will not cover all of them, but it's a good reminder that this includes all of your significant accounting policies and includes more detailed information to support the financial numbers that are in this report. So the only page I'd like to touch on in the notes is page 16. Page 16 is your deposit and investment footnote, and I'm sure most are aware of the banking crisis that happened in 23. I think it's important to highlight how custodial credit risk over your deposits is a significant item to consider. The library has never historically had issues, but I just wanted to point out that as of December 31st, all of the library's deposits were insured and collateralized in excess of what the FDIC covers, which is only $250,000. So continue to have those, that custodial credit risk covered, and you'll be good with your deposits. Page number 34, moving farther down, is your general fund budget versus actual schedule. It shows actual revenues and actual expenditures compared to budget. You'll see really what caused the positive change in fund balance for the year. You can see that general fund revenues were $3.7 million versus what was budgeted for $3.5. So more positive year from a budget standpoint. Revenue offset by a positive year in terms of spending $3.4 million, which was budgeted at $3.5. So revenues over budget, expenditures under budget equates to a positive year. Last sections I want to cover in this report are your pensions. So these are on page 35, the next page. So page 35 and 36 represent the library's participation in IMRF, and page 35 in particular is the schedule of employer contributions. So these are the contributions that the library is paying out of pocket to fund their portion of retirement. And you'll see that over the 8 years on this schedule, the library continues to contribute what the actuary recommends. And as long as you'll continue to do that, then you'll have positive results actuarially. So contributing 7.48% of overall library payroll in terms of members involved in IMRF. But as we know, IMRF is the well-funded plan in the state. Page 36 is your schedule of net pension liabilities, most recently measured for IMRF. So it's important to point out that in order to keep the library's audit issued in a timely manner, because the village acts as the agent on behalf of the library with IMRF, the library reports year-old data. So this most recent measurement is as of December 31st, 2021. The most recently measured information indicates a $93,000 net pension asset for IMRF, which means that you have more assets set aside to fund the retirement benefits. I will say that 2022, as we know, was not a great market year, so I would expect this net pension asset to grow late next year. But nevertheless, IMRF is a healthy plan throughout the state, and as long as the library continues to contribute, what the actuary recommends, then you'll see positive results there. So that's IMRF. The other plan is the Municipal Employers Retirement Fund, pages 37 through 39. A little bit more on the employer contribution side. In 2022, out of pocket, $209,000 roughly. You can see those contributions continue to be based on what the actuary recommends. So similar concepts to the last schedules, but continuing to contribute what the actuary recommends is what we'd like to see. Page 38 indicates the employer's net pension liability for the Municipal Employers Retirement Fund. This year, again, it was measured as of December 31st, 2021 to keep the library in a timely status on issuing their reports. Just above $2 million. You'll note that liability has continued to decrease, kind of dating back to 2016. As the plan membership, if you will, continues to. I think there's just one active member for Murphy at this point. So basically, continuing to pay those retirement benefits on that. So that represents the annual financial report that I wanted to cover here tonight. I can cover just a few items out of the board communication if that works for you all. I don't know if there's any questions. If I've covered too much, I'm happy to stop. So the board communication is the second and last report. All good things to report out of this. There are two reasons that we and purposes for this communication. One, auditing standards require that we issue this document to the elected officials of the government. Two, it's also our opportunity to provide any recommendations if there were any for improvement and things of that nature. So page number 2, I think it's just important to note that under the qualitative aspects of accounting practices, you'll note that there was a new accounting policy implemented during the fiscal year, which was the lease standard. Page number 3. The second and third sections there, corrected and uncorrected misstatements, just document what misstatements were identified during the audit. This year there were just a few adjusting journal entries that were posted. They were primarily related to the long-term elements of the library, your capital assets, your long-term debt, your pensions, which is so very consistent with what we see across the board. So no uncorrected misstatements. It's good to see that any adjustments that were posted are reflected in the library's general ledger. Disagreements with management, pleased to report there were no disagreements with management or difficulties with the audit. If there were, that'd be our opportunity to say that. Let's see, page 5 are those journal entries if you're interested in looking at those. And page 7 is our management letter, the beginning of our management letter. Pleased to report we didn't have any new recommendations, control deficiencies, anything of that nature that we would suggest as part of our financial statement audit. We look at internal controls, We look at policies, we obviously audit the financials. Nothing that was elevated to a deficiency or anything to formally report with you all tonight. So a good year from an audit perspective. The last thing I wanted to note is on page 8, and it's we're in the GASB announcements, which is so very exciting, but on the topic of accounting policies that are being implemented, with leases being an accounting policy this year for 2022, next year I want to make the board and Pam aware of GASB Statement 96, subscription-based IT arrangements. This is leases of software. So any right to use software over an extended term is what they're trying to capture, what GASB is trying to capture as far as, off-balance sheet accounting and getting those obligations on the balance sheet. So libraries, software is a pretty common, for any government, in my opinion, any functional government is using software as a service. And I think it's important to inform you all of what's coming for next year. We are very prepared from an accounting firm standpoint. It's just these standards are complex. So I think that for your benefit, it's good to know, and we can have proactive discussions as we lead into the audit next year. But
Does that include things like database subscriptions as well, or are we looking more at Microsoft Office for all my staff, that kind of thing?
So yeah, it's anything that is greater than 12 months, a subscription that's greater than 12 months and is non-cancelable. So if your database is, I know like with what you provide to residents from the library and resource perspective, if you're paying to use that software and it's a commitment for multiple years, then yeah. So certainly complex.
Even if we're paying it once a year, if our contract, for example, is 3 years, then does that fall under this as well?
Yes, if you can't back out of the contract, you're committed.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's a lot like leases as far as what's excludable and what's not, but yeah, it's certainly a little bit trickier because
Interesting. Okay, that's good to know.
when you think about a municipality and the different departments they have with public safety, highways, and streets, I mean it's a big one.
And should I reach out to you? Someone will contact me.
Yeah. No, I think it's good that we have a dialogue about it, and I'd say if there's anything I could advise on you now, it'd be to start to pull whatever agreements you have, because that's going to dictate the terms and dictate the accounting.
Got it.
So yeah, on that fun note, that's in the fun world of accounting. I'd like to just thank Pam and her staff and their involvement with the audit, and thank you all for having me here tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
As long as we had a good.
Was it good work?
Yeah, no,
And
let's
thank you
turn
for
that.
moving me up in agenda. I appreciate it.
Of course, yeah.
I'll start doing that, Nick, and then if I have any questions.
Yeah, please reach out.
Since,
We have
before I
some-
know it, the audit time will be here.
We have some organizational tools that I think will help.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great.
You all have a great night, great weekend.
Thanks.
You too.
Thank
Thank you.
Take your time on your night.
Nice to see you.
Congrats on the
Oh,
incoming
thank
grandchild.
And you'll, if I email you whatever, you'll go over those things with me.
Yes.
Yeah, I brought, especially if we outsource a lot, I mean, our IT in general. So I'll get over No, so it's pretty much business. Thanks, Nick.
There's so many things I was gonna say.
Well, no, not always. So for example, before we switched to OSG, we didn't do that. We purchased, like Microsoft Office, we actually bought those licenses. So we switched to 365 Online and stuff like that. So for those things, but then there's also, as I alluded to with Nick, is that, we have a lot of subscription databases, and some of those contracts are for 3 years, even though we pay them every year. But we sign a contract or the agreement is for 3 years or whatever to lock you in at a certain price. So there's quite a few of those kinds of things. And then, there's a number of smaller pieces of software and stuff that we get, like, we're gonna start doing some cyber testing and different things like that, because some insurance some of the cyber insurance is requiring some of that. So there's a lot of little pieces, and like we have our backups, for example. So there's, like I said, with OSG, there's a lot of those kinds of pieces. And then we have contracts with TBS who does all like the internal printing stuff. So there's a lot of pieces to this. So this is harder than the leases, because for us, the leases are really easy, because the only two leases we have, as Nick said, are the parking lot and then the copiers. But this is gonna be a bigger deal to pull all that together.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that Sickich did with the leases, they have a tool, I mean, it was relatively inexpensive, it was $1,000, and even though we only, at the time, have 2 leases, I said, well, it makes sense to go ahead and use it. You just kind of put the lease information in there, and then this particular tool that Sickich has developed helps pull all the relevant information. So I'm hoping, because he said they have some tools to help, that it'll be
Yeah,
something similar,
yeah.
that we can start to do that. But it's good for me to know this, because it will take a little bit more time to pull this
Sure.
together. I'm sure. Yeah. It seems like every year there's something that makes it a little bit, my understanding, it started a few years back, kind of, what is time, right? COVID is, I mean, even prior to COVID, the movement was to kind of track some of the governmental expenditures in a similar way that they do, like for-profit entities and that kind of thing. So I think they're moving in that direction with a lot of these kinds of things. And as he said, it's more a way to, really get a clearer picture of your financial responsibilities long-term. So, but yeah, this will be, because I did not want to hear that, but that's,
Yeah, that was the best.
But Sickich is great, and they're super helpful, so I mean, I feel like.
At least he told you now.
Yeah, I mean, and they will, but, they're also very good at making sure that, we have everything that we need to get the right information and work with us to pull all that together, so.
All right, so we will move on. I'll make a motion to approve the regular board meeting minutes from May 11th, 2023.
Second.
Differently.
Any questions, comments? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. President's reports, I don't think I have anything. Kind of distracted, we just sat on committee, so. Committee reports, we'll move on to finance.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the financial reports for May 2023. General ledger, is there any questions? Okay, the check register, any questions?
7522.
Was
I haven't seen that
Sign
one
off.
before.
That is a
Right,
presenter?
That's a program presenter?
Yeah.
Okay.
$100?
$100?
Is it Yoga?
I don't,
We can, it's a program presenter.
yeah, I
We can look that up for you, Mohammed, if you want us to forward
Is it
that.
I was just
Magic?
curious.
I'm sorry?
can. Magic, perhaps, with the youth services.
Yeah, I think it's a youth services program, we just don't
Yeah.
remember exactly what program.
What is Garaventa?
The lift, for this lift in here, they're the people that installed it, and it broke, and it costs a lot to have them come out to fix it.
Because they can.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Bob had to hand crank it. Yeah.
What
it
is
was-
that can be done?
It can be done, it was really difficult, and then they got it, and then we were like, what if someone else gets stuck? I said, well, worst case scenario, we call the fire department, luckily we didn't have to do that, but we're all in the wrong business, it's $800 to have someone come out just to look at it, and then
They
it
did
was,
nothing.
and they had to right, and then it was another 2,500 to have them come out and actually fix it, so, yeah.
How old is that piece of equipment?
It was installed when Deborah was here,
Oh,
during the
okay.
renovation,
Okay, so
so
that's a new-
2014, 2015, whenever that was, so one of those 2 years, I could go back and look, but yeah.
Was it something that just wore out?
So my understanding is that there's a piece, so there's a floor in it, and apparently one of the pieces under the floor got damaged, and so it wasn't engaging correctly. And so anytime, like, it seemed to work okay if no one was in it, but the minute someone got in it, no matter what the weight wasn't distributed right, and there was a broken piece. So they had to take up all the flooring, it's like a one unit, I think, and then figure out, I mean, that was his speculation from the guy that first came out. And then, that was indeed what happened, but they had to take the floor apart, they had to repair the part that was broken, and then put the floor back in and make sure it works. So it seems to have been working okay since it was repaired a few weeks ago, but, yeah, and obviously not under warranty any
How
longer.
often does it even get used?
It does get used fairly often, especially now that we're doing movies again. A lot of the attendees of the Tuesday morning movies are older people, and many of them use it. They come in wheelchairs, that kind of thing. So it does get probably more use than you realize, so, yeah.
Well, then it was worth
Okay. Yeah, people do use it, so. Yeah, we had to like warn people, it's like, okay, it's out of service for a couple of weeks, and just to make sure, and then, you know, so then there was a couple times we're not technically supposed to do it, but we had to let a couple people that sit in wheelchairs sit at the top of the landing, and, you know, we've been told by the fire department that that's a safety hazard, obviously, so we try not to do that, which is part of the reason that we installed it. And I know at one time we talked about doing potentially a ramp, but because of the angle that ADA says a ramp has to be at, it would take up so much space that it really wasn't worth it. So I know that that's why we went with that option, at least for right now, so. But yeah, that's what Garrett Benton is.
Okay, all right. Seems like a regular one.
We do pay them, I think it's an annual or a semi-annual
Yeah.
fee, but it's just kind of for maintenance, but this was outside of that.
Do we own that? Or is that like?
We bought it and we pay an annual maintenance fee, so, just for them to come out. I think it's twice a year they come out to inspect it. But obviously this happened after literally, it broke probably within a month of the last inspection, so, yeah.
That's how it
Don't
goes.
inspect it very well.
I mean, it could just happen too, so.
There you go.
Can't ever trust those people coming to the movies Munchies and More, or the Tuesday morning movies.
The income statement, any questions?
All right. So I'll do roll call for, since it's financial, so Gonzalez,
Yes.
Guzzo,
Yes.
Hussein,
Yes.
Jost, Flores,
Yes.
Mason Jack, yes. Facilities, well, we had a pretty detailed kind of facility discussion last month, so that's ongoing with the exterior.
I just want to say too, I won't do it right now because I know time is of the essence for a couple of you. I do have the sample of what the windows will look like if you want to see and feel how heavy they are. I've got them up there, so if you want to, after the meeting or whatever, if you want to take a look at them, so.
Policy committee, I know you guys met last month, and you guys
Yeah.
are now on track with all that, so. In addition to the staff report, Pam also prepared progress towards your annual goals, so thank you for including that. Any questions for Pam, the report, or the progress towards the goals? Made some great progress towards the goals.
Yeah, some of them are completed.
Yeah, that's always
Way
nice
to
to see.
overcome.
Nice to be able to write.
It's nice to be able to write that, and
Yeah,
be done with
that's
it.
good.
It does.
Nothing's better than checking something off a checklist.
Does anyone else already do something for the day, then write it down so you can cross it out?
I'm gonna start doing.
Sometimes
that.
you need those easy wins.
Yeah.
You know,
Validation.
Exactly, right? Brush my teeth.
I think your idea about postponing until the strategic plan makes a lot of sense.
For the technology center.
For what to do with the discretional.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I suggested some of the postponements based on, you know, things that we're finding in strategic plan. So if anyone has any other feelings about that, certainly let me know. But I think like what I'm proposing makes the most sense based on what we've got going on.
Do you want us to weigh in where you said I would recommend moving the funding capital campaign projects?
Would you like to weigh in?
No, I mean, it's the way it's written, you say I recommend moving this, do you need us to say, yeah, okay?
oh, I see, I wasn't sure you were.
That was
If,
what
if
we
that,
said.
if that is okay with the board,
Is that the way
basically I
you're-
would just
Oh,
need, you know,
sorry.
general,
No, that's-
that, you know, saying that, yeah, that makes sense to move that, or no, we really want to focus on something else. But like I said, it seems to be based on previous conversations and everything else that's going on, that it makes the most sense to move that, unless anyone feels really strongly about trying to do something this year. So, I just feel like we've got a lot on our collective plate.
I think that makes sense. I think it makes sense to move to 2024. You know, focus is on the strategic plan, make good progress in those two goals.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, there may be some things that come out of it that maybe we're not thinking of, that it might make more sense to, you know, do a capital campaign for that. So, or, you know, as the exterior work starts happening, maybe something happens that we can't fund this year, that it makes sense to do, you know, something happens.
Yep. A lot of personnel changes. Seems like more.
I think it's just because, there weren't necessarily personnel changes for adult services. The position, so when, we did have an adult services assistant, Grace Weckman, who left, and we didn't fill that position right away. So, Melissa had asked for two assistant positions, and so, we were able to finally fill Grace's, which had gone unfilled, and that was fine. We didn't have any big issues with that. Part of the reason that so she hired two people, so that seems like it's more. And then Sarah obviously leaving to take the manager position at Lincolnwood. You know, it's always sad to see her go, but I'm super excited, and we're all super excited to see what she can do there. And then Michael McNichol at CERC left to take a full-time, he had just gotten his library science degree and was specifically looking for full-time. And he interviewed for and was offered one of the assistant positions, but specifically needed full-time, and he had been offered the interlibrary full-time position at the University of Chicago, so it just worked out. But we've got some great new people. I think Melissa's people will be great. The young lady we hired to fill Sarah's position, she starts June 26th. She'll be really, I think that'll be a great fit, and because she's coming from Park Ridge, she's already got Polaris experience being in CCS, so I mean that helps with, you know, kind of transitioning people into the library. And then Michaela, who Jeff just hired in circulation, he's super excited by her coming on, and I think she'll be a great asset to the library as well. So it does seem like a lot all at once, and so we've been, you know, working at kind of codifying and getting our kind of onboarding procedures consistent, and much thanks to Suzanne for helping with that, and she's been really a huge asset in helping us get that straightened out. So.
Thank you, business manager Suzanne.
Yes. Congratulations.
Yeah, that kind of came about as we were doing some report for this date for someone, I can't even remember, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, well, this is everything that she does. So I had talked to Suzanne about, you know, changing it. She's like, well, yeah, sure, whatever. But it made a lot more sense that what she's doing really does go beyond admin assistant. And, you know, if you look at the actual kind of job responsibilities and stuff, so. yeah.
Any other comments, questions? All right, so we'll move on, unfinished business, Decennial Committee on Local Government Efficiency Act. So we had our first meeting tonight. Pam will get a kind of a recap of how that went. I guess we were as efficient as possible with our first meeting. I don't know, I've never been to one of those meetings, so I think it was okay, so.
We only have to do 2 more.
Yeah, so, yeah, we'll get that going.
Mark, I'll be, since you weren't here,
Yes.
everyone else was, I'll be sending out the minutes to that. There will be a brief recap of what we discussed and kind of what each of the board members.
And you were assigned to each of the 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to do everything. That's what happens when you're.
What meetings will I be missing next?
Right. You said you wouldn't miss anything. I said, oh, no, it'll be.
Yeah, right, yeah. And strategic plan update.
Lima is part of the strategic plan. I did want to give the board kind of an update of where we're at right now. Currently, the planning team, which is myself, Lima, Suzanne, Kaylin Heinzelman from Adult, Courtney, am I missing something? And Karina, yes. So we had one round of the survey preparation, and so everyone had a chance to weigh in on that. And so now they've done the second version of the survey. Everyone has till tomorrow to send their comments back to me, so I can compile them and send them on to Fast Forward Libraries. Laura, one of Amanda's co-workers, is actually putting together the survey. And then, but I think we're in a really good place. The goal is to get the survey out to everyone in July sometime, so that, and then people have like a month to sort of return it. One of the things that I think we're going to do is, as a way to get, we talked about at one of the planning team committees, we met with Amanda and Laura, and we talked about, went through a whole kind of like how we're getting started, what's the first thing, that sort of thing. But one of the things that she talked about is how we wanted to get the word out about the survey, because we're not doing community focus groups, we're really relying a lot on survey, board and staff input, and then we'll do stakeholder interviews. So it was really important to us to get as many people to fill out the survey as possible. So she had suggested, she worked with libraries that sent out like reminder postcards that have a QR code, or the website, because it's an online survey. And so we looked into doing that, and we can get postcards created that would go out to every household in Morton Grove, so about 10,000 pieces of mail, for about $2,300, which I think is money well spent. But for just $300 more, we can actually send out to all the households in Morton Grove a 4-page flyer that we can include the survey with it. So I think we'll probably do that. And it will still have the QR code and the link. And so, but we probably won't get a ton of those back, because people would have to fill them out and bring them back to us. But we thought, given that there was such a small amount of money more to actually print the survey and send it out, that we may as well do that. So we'll be doing that once we finalize the survey and make sure we can fit it under the 4 pages and stuff. So, and we should be able to, cover the cost of that between, out of either the fund that the strategic plan funds came out of, or miscellaneous or other funds we've got kind of floating around that we can move some of these around. So, but yeah, I feel like we're in a good place. The planning team has been great. Everyone's been really involved and really thinking a lot about. Everyone's taking it really seriously. The next thing after the survey will be August meetings. So Amanda will be here for the board at that August meeting, and then she's going to be here. She'll be here that whole day, and we'll have 3 or 4 meetings at various times of the day, so that she can get as much staff input as well. And then, as I think I said in my goals, in my progress report for my goals, after that will be kind of report compilation of some different things, and talking about implementing some of those plans, and then and Fast Forward will be working on their reporting part of it and stuff. And then, as I said, anticipated that the board would approve the plan and kind of unveil it for the public either late December, probably more likely early 2024. But I feel like we're in a really good place, so.
And Fast Forward is great to work with.
Oh, they're fantastic.
They're so professional, so responsive, they know what they're doing. So I feel like we're in good
Yeah,
hands.
Lima had a couple questions, and so I had responded to her, and I copied Amanda as well, because I wanted to get her feedback, and I felt like that was, hopefully, it seemed like you found that worthwhile and
totally.
meaningful and stuff, so, but yeah, as Lima said, I mean, they're just really, I mean, there's just so many reasons that I wanted to work with them, and I think that, you know, at least our actual experience now, it has really, you know, borne out, so. I think we'll end up with, as painful as sometimes this process can be, I mean, I think that they're making it as painless as possible, and then also, but we'll end up really hopefully with something that really helps guide us into the future, which was really my goal, so.
We have a great group representing us from the library, so thank you, Lima, thank you, Kate, really, so, thank you for that update. New business, staff training, so you're asking for permission to close the library?
Yes.
That day? Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
sorry.
No, that's what I figured.
I'm sorry, I think I might have said it in some report, but my apologies
No,
for not
that's-
making that entirely work.
That's fine. I didn't think it was an invitation for us to come to the pancake breakfast, so. I'll make a motion to approve the closing of the library for, Friday, November 3rd, 2023 for staff and service. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great.
So as you can see from the agenda, we will be closed the full day. That will be, we're having an outside speaker come in the morning to cover kind of customer servicey things. She spoke at a Laconia meeting, which was here, so we had a couple of staff members attend her meeting here, and we thought, we've got some feedback that we thought she would be good for, you know, a more kind of warm growth focused event. So she'll be here in the morning. We're doing a pancake breakfast because this year with the exterior renovation work, the past few summers, we've tried to do like a lunch out on the lawn. I'm sure you guys probably have talked about it, where a couple people bring in their grills, and so it's a nice way for staff to kind of mingle with everyone else. But since we can't do that with the exterior renovation work, Karina had suggested doing a pancake breakfast as you know, kind of in place of that. So that's why we're doing the pancake breakfast there. So. And then afternoon will be, that will be a lot of work with staff on kind of staff culture, talking about implementation of the strategic plan, that kind of thing, because by that time it will mostly be in place and stuff. So that will be, the timing just worked out really well based on Amanda's agenda in terms of strategic planning process, and then having that come up as the day we normally, the past few years we've closed on that day, so it worked out.
Okay, so communications, hopefully everyone saw the letter from Secretary of State.
We haven't actually gotten the money yet.
But that's good news.
It usually, but the past few years, we have gotten it when, you know, within a couple of weeks of getting the letter, but the letter's always the great first step.
Yeah, that's great. And Suzanne also passed, Karina's off the graphic out.
So on the graphic, it's a little bit different. So one side is the normal graphic, and then the other side is just a quick snapshot, a graphic representation of the increase in some of our stats. So Karina and I have been talking about some more graphical representations of the statistical information. So you may or may not see something similar next month, but we are moving towards trying to present that kind of information to the board, because I think it's more visually appealing. I know, especially for you guys, you don't necessarily want to see the 4 or 5 page Excel spreadsheet that I give you, even though I look at that all the time, but this I think is a good way to improve that. One of the things that I did want to point out too is that all of our stats are going back up, and so we're really feeling like we're gonna, that we're kind of back to normal and stuff. And so Courtney did report today to me too that as of this afternoon, at about 4:30, I think there was 517 summer reading program signups in YS. So Our goal is to hit 1,000 this year, so fingers crossed. We've never hit 1,000, but we're hoping that we do this year, so we'll see.
Awesome.
Tomorrow is our front porch concert, so for those of you, if you want to attend, and we always have people that sign up during that time too, so we're excited for that, and we're really happy the weather's cooperating.
Yeah, right, you never know. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. All right, public comments, non-agenda items, it is still just us here. So, it is 7:43,